Hey boyos, Thal here. This is actually my second take of this video because the first one was kind of utter dog shit. Hey there, and welcome to my new Final Fantasy channel, Thaladin. This channel is going to be focused on Final Fantasy XIV content. We're coming right up on Endwalker, so I wanted to talk about five things that you should probably want to get done before Endwalker comes out, because it's got like 3 weeks, I think, just over 3 weeks until the expansion comes out. And these are things that will hopefully enhance your experience with the expansion, whether through better knowledge of the lore that might be relevant, or, you know, just dodging, waiting in queue for hours on end with new classes. So the first of the 5 things should be pretty straightforward. You need to complete the MSQ. If you are new to Final Fantasy XIV, you might have noticed that a lot of this story stuff seems to build on itself. And if you haven't completed the MSQ before Endwalker comes out, unlike some other MMOs, you will be gated in the content that you will do. Some other MMOs, they want everybody to jump right into the newest expansion, no matter whether they had played the game before or they had been religious players up until then. Final Fantasy XIV puts a lot of effort into making sure that each player experiences the story in a contiguous manner, so you will be prevented from going into the new zones or getting any of the new content until you've completed the Shadowbringers 5.55 MSQ patch, which, honestly, the way you do this is easy. You see that little icon up in the top left of your screen or wherever you put this junk? Just keep doing those quests until it says, nope, you're donezo. And you should be good to go. Again, this one is probably the easiest one on the list, but it can also be the most time-consuming, depending on where you are in the story. If you don't get to it before Endwalker drops, maybe just consider having a nice leisurely stroll to the MSQ, knowing what awaits. Number 2, do the raids. This one actually comes straight from the Word of God itself. Yoshi P, the director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV, and Ishikawa, the main scenario writer, the lead main scenario writer, both kind of chimed in on content that they thought players should be caught up on before Endwalker. And that's the raiding content for the Binding Coils of Bahamut, the Realm Reborn raids, Alexander, which is the Heavensward raid tier, and Omega, which is Stormblood. So, yeah, sure, Yoshi's just like, yes, why don't you just do all of the raid content except for Shadowbringers? They implied that these raids would give some interesting lore background for some of the events in Endwalker and might help richen the experience. I could go into an entire video about what that might mean, because there are some interesting lore bops in here. But for the sake of this video, just make sure you go through and do these. The Binding Coils of Bahamut, you can unlock by visiting Urianger and the Waking Sands and taking up this Primal Awakening quest. Alexander you unlock in Idleshire by talking with Slowfix and accepting the quest as armed. And Omega you can unlock in Ralgor's Reach, beginning with, what was the quest name? The Hunt for Omega. Very on the nose and stupid that I didn't look it up before this video. If you're worried about the time it takes to do them, I would recommend enjoying them for the story and kind of blazing through them unsynced. That means doing the content at level 80. Binding Coils of Bahamut, just go get a couple of friends that are level 80 and blast through for the story. Alexander and Omega both have a normal or a story mode version of the raid that is separate from the Savage raid tiers that people consider to be like true endgame, apart from Glamour. You can probably unsync Alexander with a couple of friends at level 80. I'm not sure how unsyncable Omega is at this point. It probably is, but that's easy enough to get queues for and to knock out. But that way you at least experience the story and you know the relevance that they might have on Endwalker. And then I say, when you have time, go back and do the content at the level that it's intended. It's still a lot of fun. All these raids are extremely fun. But for now, go and get the story. You got 3 weeks. Number 3, you need to unlock Bajja. Now, this is particularly relevant if you plan on playing Reaper or Sage anytime in the early days of the expansion. Bajja is Shadowbringer's equivalent of Palace of the Dead or Heaven on High. It can be used for leveling from 71 to 80 without relying on dungeon queues, because the dungeon queues are going to be a nightmare, especially for Reaper. DPS are a dime a dozen as far as like player count numbers. So the queues are gonna be abysmal, and if you're trying to level that initial stretch from 71 to 80, going into content where you can have 72 people in a zone and just zerg fates and get experience is huge. Now to unlock Bajja, it's actually a quest line that begins in Stormblood. You need to unlock the Evilist raids, the 24-man Evilist raids, and do that entire quest line. Let me see, where do you unlock that? You can start this quest line with Dramatis Personae by talking to Kaiten and Kugane. So go and do that, go through it. It might take a little bit of time to get through all 3 instances and all the story there, but that will allow you to then unlock the Shadowbringers content of Bajja. Evilist is a prerequisite for Bajja, and Bajja has its own story, its own progression system. It's linked to the Shadowbringers relic, but don't worry about any of that right now. If you don't have Bajja unlocked, just get it unlocked, get able to walk in the door, and you can level any class from 71 to 80 in pretty decent time. And that way you're not sitting there just twiddling your thumbs, wanting to try out Reaper and Sage and being like, I got my scythe, I got my laser Gundam shooty things, where can I do anything? You can. Go liberate Bajja. Number 4, pre-order the damn game. This one should be obvious, but maybe it's not. So you get 2 main benefits from pre-ordering the game. 1, you get Menfina's earrings, which are really good, like so damn good, plus 30% experience below level 80. That's huge! 30% experience. Now, disclaimer, this is a bonus to mob experience. So these are open world mobs, dungeon bosses, those kinds of things. Anything that gives you like a set experience, like Palace of the Dead or even Bajja Fates, are not affected by these earrings. But still, for dungeons, and that's for every job. Every job can wear these. So if you're leveling your first like alt job to 80 or your last one, it still gets the same benefit. And then the second benefit of pre-ordering, which you should go do right now, pause the video, like it, because this is a new channel, I need your help, and subscribe if you're enjoying, and then go pre-order the damn game. But the reason you should do that is early access. If this is your first Final Fantasy XIV expansion drop, you need to know that Square Enix are a bunch of liars. The release date that's listed everywhere is November 23rd, but the early access date is November 19th, like 4 days earlier. This is the real launch date. Don't let anybody tell you differently. Seriously, the servers are going to be packed on the 19th, and if you really, really want to avoid spoilers and want to make sure that you're experiencing things as fresh as possible, I would go ahead and get the pre-order so that you can play those few days earlier. I know that some players blast through and are done within like 40 hours of an expansion, though Endwalker is, looking to be a bit larger than the previous expansions, which is really exciting. Number 5, this one is more of my personal like preference tip and my experience more than like Endwalker specific, but anytime there's a new expansion, get a Gatherer to max level before the expansion drops. Now the reason for this is that you can make a hot buck by gathering even the most basic like new expansion materials and selling them on the market boards. There are people who go and they do this in their computer chairs at a new expansion, and they don't do MSQ. They just grab their keyboard. Oh god, everything's being deleted. They grab their keyboard, they say, I'm going to go craft, and they type in their like hacker crafting macros, and that's what they spend their entire expansion doing, and they make hundreds of millions of gil. But you know what they need? They need people to go gather shit. And whether you do this by having connections with somebody and being like, yeah, I'll go gather for you, or just, putting it on the market board, you can make a hot buck in gil by just going and getting the most basic gathering mats at the beginning of an expansion. So if you feel like you need a little bit of extra money, get a gatherer to 81, 82, like just as you go. It's really easy with leaves. And go make a little bit of extra cash as you're playing through the expansion. 5 things that you should do before Endwalker drops. And I tried to keep this list lean. It's not exactly an exhaustive list of everything in the game you can do. But I know that time is short for a lot of people, and we're getting into the holidays and the expansion's about to be here, so I thought I would make a list of things that were actually doable for a lot of people before the expansion, even if it might be cutting it a bit tight depending on where you are in some of these things that you can do, especially like the MSQ. My final tip before the expansion is roll cat dad. Do it. Seriously, cat moms are coming. Reject bunny boy and become cat dad. Thank you everybody for watching. This was my first video on this new channel that's centered around Final Fantasy XIV. Your support means a lot. If you could just like the video or subscribe if you want to see more content from me, some more videos, that'd be great. And I hope you guys are enjoying yourselves. But I'll catch you guys in the next one.